Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time that you're watching this. My name is Adam Byanak, and I will be giving you a presentation today on two important areas of focus within psychology, two areas that I believe are incredibly relevant to society today. Um, those are social and personality psychologies. So first, let's look at what is personality psychology. Well, really, it's a study as old as time. It's how we define ourselves. It's being introspective about how we think and feel and act, and basically who we are to the world. It's the study of what makes you who you are. It's the study that really about what makes you unique. If you were to ask anyone else to describe themselves, there's a limitless possibility of descriptive words they could use. I'm sure at some point or another, we've all sat in on a class, we've all sat in on job interviews, we've all sat in situations where the question has been posed, uh, describe yourself, tell us about yourself. And chances are, you've used any number of descriptive words. You're outgoing, you're caring, you're kind, you're giving. Um, Chances are you probably leave out, some of the negative stuff if we're just being honest. But generally, psychologists, when they look at personality traits, you'll hear the term the Big Five. The Big Five generally categorizes traits into openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and in some end of the spectrum or another, we all fit into one of those categories, whether we are extremely agreeable, or, we generally have some reservations, openness to new experiences. Some people are thrill seekers and want that, want to go out, and if you asked them to go jump out of a plane, they would. Or there's other people where, you know, I, here, try this new food. Well, I don't, I'm not willing to do that. Um, you know, Personality psychology is important, and personality psychology really is relative to some other areas such as mental health, like how we perceive ourselves, and basically based on how we perceive ourselves and our personality can have a significant impact on mental health. Um, but relative to what we're going to discuss next, personality can play a big role in social psychology. So, part of the reason I chose these topics, I believe social psychology is an incredibly important area of focus to look at right now. Um, right now, I believe it's more relevant than ever. As a society, we're more connected, and we're more active in social situations than ever before because of the invention of social media. Now at the click of a button, we can be engaged in large group discussions, one-on-one discussions, um, and social psychology plays an important role in how we perceive ourselves, how we interact in social situations, and really part of that is gauged on how we are perceived within those social situations. So I believe it's incredibly important that we continue to, study and collect data, because, and now there are more studies than ever that are shifting their focus to, you know, online interactions and how people are interacting with one another because in my opinion, I think it's having a profound impact on us collectively. I'm somewhat cynical when it comes to online social media. I don't use a ton of it. I don't engage in a ton of it. A part of that is maybe I'm a little bit more introverted. Um, but a part of that is I got to a point where I didn't particularly care for, um, how people were, demonstrating themselves, people's personalities, when they get into these social situations, which ties back into the mental health thing, but that's another subject for another day. Um, because there's a prevalence there, there is a boom in that social psychology studies, and I think it's incredibly important that we continue to do that, um, so we can learn how to interact more responsibly with one another. So basically, as I discussed, where personality meets social psychology, um, our personalities, who we are, how we, uh, present ourselves to the world, how we perceive ourselves, and how we want ourselves to be perceived, in the world. How does that change? A lot of times, depending on the group you get around, you could be a little different depending on who you're interacting with. I'm sure many of us can attest to at some point, you know, hey, you acted a little different, when you got around your friends, your buddies. Um, it all plays an important role, and that understanding personality and social psychology is incredibly important for us to grow and to evolve and adapt responsibly into, more responsible members of society. If you'd like to read further, I've provided a couple references that I used for my presentation and that I think you would find interesting. So feel free, help yourself, and do a little bit further reading.